Thank you. I appreciate folks showing up. The purpose of this is, in this day and age of COVID, candidly, I would much rather see you in person and answer your questions and try and give you information. But this type of setup for at least now is just going to have to do, I guess. Uh, the only opening statement that I have is that the the riots that we experienced the end of May and early June, and to a certain extent, that have continued up to the present time, were in my estimation unprecedented in the history of the state of Minnesota. I personally have never seen anything quite like it. I can tell you that I am old enough to I remember the LA riots from the late 60s, and they were riots where literally the whole town seemed to be on fire, and the looting and the rioting and the criminal acts that were being conducted at that time uh, was something truly to behold. And what happened to us at the end of May and first part of June is exactly, it reminded me exactly of that. I just found it really, really upsetting. And so that was sort of the genesis of the idea that maybe we ought to be looking into these riots a little bit different or a little bit more deeply, and try and find out, what really happened, and do it from a standpoint of, let's first establish what the facts are, and then we can come to some conclusions drawn on those facts, and hopefully make some recommendations as to where the state of Minnesota is headed and what it should do and what it can expect from its elected leaders in the future. So that was really the whole purpose of the hearings, and ultimately the report that was released this morning. And so again, the reason why I'm here is to just try and answer any questions that you may have. Uh, I truly wish we could do it in person, but I guess that isn't going to be possible. So any questions on this topic, or candidly anything else you want to talk to me about, fire away.
Yeah, so thank you, Senator Newman. Let's start with Kevin Featherly's question. He is asking what happened to the federal pattern or practice inquiry?
Approximately a week ago, I received a letter from the Department of Justice, in which they explained that there is an active criminal investigation that is ongoing with respect to the incidences surrounding Mr. Floyd's death. And they are conducting that investigation. They have not yet decided whether or not to open a formal pattern and practice investigation, but that is still on the table. And once their criminal investigation is ultimately decided, that's when they're going to make a decision on whether or not to proceed with the pattern and practice investigation. But that is, I guess, maybe best described as in a holding pattern for right now, but is still under consideration.
All right, thanks, Kevin. If you have any follow-up, feel free to chat or jump in. Are there other questions?
Yeah, Mary LaHammer here. I'm going to ask a question. Going through, this is kind of tangentially related, but it's definitely related to the unrest, and looking at the bonding tax bill rolled in with some appropriations. It looks like there is some money. Senator Newman, could you talk about what appears to be some money for cleanup from all that unrest, and if you favor that?
The only money that I am aware of, and I'm not sure what you mean by cleanup, but there is money that I am aware of in the supplemental budget bill, which would reimburse the state of Minnesota for the, I'll call them out-of-pocket expenses incurred in addressing the riots. I'm going to ask staff here if they can come up with the number for me, but it's quite a large sum of money, and is meant to reimburse the state of Minnesota for the overtime pay for putting law enforcement up in motels to, to feed them, to pay for equipment, to pay for MnDOT employees to go out and begin closing highways, all out-of-pocket expenses incurred by the state of Minnesota in addressing those riots. And that is the only money that I am aware of that is in any of the current bills that the legislature is addressing.
Yeah, Senator Newman, if I can jump in, it looks like you're right. Yeah, it is a part of the supplemental appropriations, public safety, transportation, natural resources. I
Right.
see it in 3 different buckets. And in light of your report, are you supportive of those reimbursements to help them, make whole on their expenses? Do you have any concerns about that being in special session appropriation bill?
Um, I am supportive of that funding. When riots of this type happen, the state of Minnesota, in my estimation, has an unqualified obligation to address the riots. And whether we like it or not, that is going to cost us money. And so, yes, the answer is we have an obligation to reimburse those state agencies who have incurred costs directly related to the riots. And so the money that you are looking at in these supplemental budget bills goes to reimburse the state agencies for those out-of-pocket expenses that they incurred. And I have requested, for instance, DPS to give me an itemized list of those expenses, which I do have. I have an itemized list from MnDOT, and they certainly seem appropriate to me.
Okay, very good. Thank you. That answers it.
Okay, we have another question here from, and I'm sorry, JW Cox. I'm not sure what organization you're with. They're asking, oh, I just lost the question. There it is. Why is it essential to do this investigation and to compile the report? And what is the biggest thing you hope that leaders at the city and the state will take away from these findings?
Answer to the first question is, I think it's important that we have had an in-depth inquiry as to the nature and the extent of the riots that affected the state of Minnesota last summer. And this inquiry by the joint committees in the Senate are the only in-depth inquiry that I am aware of. And the reason why I think they're legitimate and why we should be doing what we did is because the riots were of unprecedented violence. I mean, there were people who were killed. There were businesses that were burned. We lost 3 times more businesses in those 5 days than are in the Mall of America. So this was something that was really an event in the history of the state of Minnesota that is really unfortunate. And so I think it's absolutely appropriate that we dig into it to see what in the world happened. I'm just looking at some numbers. I'm sorry. The second part of your question is, what do we want to take away from it? I would look at the recommendations that are in the report. That's really, in my mind, the end purpose of the investigation and the report. We got to learn from the mistakes that we made in the past so that we do not repeat them in the future. I was just handed a number of the earlier question that Ms. Lahammer had. Trunk Highway Fund, $5 million to DPS. General Fund, $3.6 million to DPS. General Fund, $2.1 million to the DNR. Some people don't realize, but conservation officers were part of the mutual aid that came in for law enforcement. So the DNR is going to be reimbursed some of those overtime expenses. And then there was $865,000 that's going to go to MnDOT. And that is because employees were out putting up barriers and blocking off freeways for the safety of the public.
Thank you. Yes, I was going to ask about DNR. So thank you for clarifying where that money came from.
You're welcome.
All right, we got another question here again from Kevin Featherly. It's a three-parter, so I can repeat it if any of it gets away. What would you flag as your top line findings from the report today? What makes them particularly important to you, Senator Newman? And have you had any feedback from the minority members on the committee after the hearings?
Last question first. No, I have not, but I expect to. I will tell you that in approximately a week, we'll give you as much heads up notice as we can. I intend to reconvene the committee for the purpose of giving all members an opportunity to weigh in on the report, and any member of the committee, any group of members of the committee will have the opportunity to submit any specific concurrences or dissents that they find appropriate, and it would be my then intention to include that additional material with the report. The top line conclusions, I'm not going to pick any one that I think is more important than the other. I think they're all equally important. I would encourage folks to take a look at them. And in reality, the conclusions are opinions. The recommendations are just that. They are recommendations as to what we do in the future. The findings, the facts that we have documented, those are not opinions, they are hard facts documented in the report. Every single one, there's well over 300 endnotes where those are actual statements or events or documents that were reviewed. Each of us, I suppose, could come to their own conclusions and their own recommendations, but what you find in the report is what I think is appropriate. The most important part of the report is, as far as I am concerned, the recommendations. What do we do going forward so that we do not experience this type of events again? So I think the list of recommendations are all important, and I think they're all equally important.
Next question will be from Tori Van Oot with the Star Tribune. Tori, you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Sure. Hi, Chairman. Thanks for doing this. You touched on a little bit in your answer to Kevin's question, but Senate Democrats have just put out a statement saying they only had, about an hour to review this report before it came out, and that shows that kind of a political partisan process going on here. Could you respond to that, and also just provide a little bit more insight? Were you and Senator Limmer the full authors of this report? Did nonpartisan staff help at all? Kind of how this came together?
Senator Limmer and I were co-authors of the report, and we, as co-authors, we are the ones that put it together. It is correct that the report was sent out to all of the members about an hour before it was released to the public. I can tell you that without equivocation, the purpose of the report, as far as I am concerned, is not political. And I candidly rather anticipated that was going to be the political bomb that was going to be thrown across the room, but it simply isn't true. If you just think about how bad this violence was and how many people were affected and the danger to the state of Minnesota and its people, if we repeat this, I am much more interested in the policies of this than any kind of political ramifications. The political ramifications are going to take care of themselves. What I'm interested in is how are we going to prevent this from happening in the future? As to the fact that maybe the minority is unhappy, I do anticipate that that there's going to be some complaints, but that is specifically why. And I have told them the entire all of the members of the Joint Committee that we are going to have a hearing. It will be to allow members to voice their support or their criticism. It will be done in public. It will be, frankly, it's going to be done in person here at the state office or the state Senate building. And you, of course, would be invited. We will do our best to put all of the protective measures in place, but I want to have it in person. And the members can then weigh in and tell us whatever they think about it, plus the fact that they will be able to submit their own criticisms or supports, their concurrences, their dissents, whatever they want to do. I am not trying to cut anybody off here, and anything that they have to say at the hearing will be part of the record, and any documents that they want to submit to me, I will include them in the report.
All right. Are there any other questions? All right, I don't hear any, so I think we will, oh, wait, Kevin Featherly, he's got one more. Kevin, do you want to type it out or do you just want to hop on and ask it?
Yeah, let me do it that way.
All right.
Will you allow members who are not part of the committee to speak to these results? You didn't allow them to testify, those minority members who were not on the committee. Will you grant them permission going forward in this next hearing?
The answer to your question is I will not. The committee, this joint committee, is a standing committee of the Senate Transportation Committee and the Senate Judiciary Committee. Those are the members that are going to be invited to participate in this upcoming hearing. Any member of the Senate that wants to speak to the press or write articles or do whatever they wish to do, is fully within their rights, and they have the ability to do this. But this is a joint Judiciary Transportation Standing Committee hearing, and that is who is going to participate in the upcoming hearing in approximately a week.
All right. Any other questions from reporters here? I'm not seeing any more.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. Week.
All right, thank you, Senator Newman.